So there was a real sense of optimism, of making change happen, and of changing the world. And this was a real contrast for me. So if I sort of look at the Davos experience, that was, in a sense, what I took from that meeting. Now, if I look at the second part of my comments, which is very much focused on what are some of the drivers we can look at in the space. So, and I was repeatedly told that you have to be optimistic. You have to give a positive message for the post-crisis world. So what are some of the sources of optimism we can look to? And I'm sure there are many, but let me identify two of them. The first one, undeniably, is technology itself. The pace of progress in technology continues. You know, with business cycles, with crises, there might be small ups and downs, but the overall pace of progress shows no signs of decreasing. And I always like to quote the results of an American inventor, philosopher called Ray Kurzweil. And Ray Kurzweil, he conducts very sophisticated modeling to look at technology progress over centuries. And he finds in his studies that mankind, society, made as much progress in the 19th century as in the preceding 9 centuries. In the first 20 years of the 20th century, we made as much progress as in the entire 19th century. And in this century, 21st century, his models predict that we will not make 100 years of progress. We will in fact make 20,000 years of progress at the current rate of progress. Why is it 20,000? Because the rate of progress itself is increasing exponentially. Now you can remove a 0 from the 20,000 or even 2 zeros, but fundamentally you see what is happening. There is this enormous push of technology, and technology is continuing to progress. And of course, we see that progress when we buy a mobile phone or buy a laptop, but the progress of technology is even more fundamental. Why? Because it is global. Today, for example, about roughly 3.8 billion people have access to the mobile phone, which is an amazing number. And if you expect in 5 years' time, that number may grow to 4.5 or 5 billion. If you have 5 billion out of a global population of about 6 point some billion connected through mobile telephony, that is remarkable. Even more remarkable is that many poor countries today are leapfrogging with technology. If you want to look at the best examples of innovative mobile applications, it is probably not in the developed world. Often many of them are in emerging markets. You know, I had in one of my sessions at Davos, the CEO of China Mobile. China Mobile, big giant in the space. And he mentioned, among other statistics, one very interesting fact. He said that today, right now in China, more people get the newspaper to the mobile phone than through the physical paper. It's a very interesting statistic, but it shows you how changes are taking place. If you want to look at online gaming, you don't look to the US. the biggest online gaming company is a Korean company called NC Soft. Most people haven't even heard of it. Why? Because in Korea, high bandwidth is cheap, like in Japan. It's about 10 times cheaper than the price you pay in Spain. So it is quite common for many families to have extra high bandwidth connections for the same price or even a lower price than what you pay to Telefonica today in Spain. So what you see is a lot of innovations are happening in emerging markets. And even more interesting for me is the fact that technology is helping drive development in these markets. Development not just in terms of new business models, like, for example, the Grameen phone example in Bangladesh, but also very fundamentally giving dignity to poor people. You know, one of the interesting things about poverty is that poor people, what they lack the most often is not just food and clean water, which are important. Often what they lack the most is just information. And information that can enable them to do interesting things. Information about crop prices, information about even land ownership records. In India, for example, there was a huge effort made to computerize land records. Why? Because then poor farmers could take just a piece of paper showing ownership to the bank to get a proper loan, as opposed to go to the village money lender who traps them for life and generations with very high loan rates. Dignity is a very important part of what technology is giving poor people in poor countries.